Today we're along the banks of the Shenandoah River, opposite the Cool Spring battlefield. The battlefield is private property, so this is as close as we can get to it. 54th Pennsylvania returned to the Shenandoah Valley and joined in the pursuit of General Jubal Early's army as it retreated from Washington, D.C. On July 18, 1864, they marched through Snickers Gap, which is behind us, and crossed the Shenandoah River here at Island Ford, or Parker's Ford as it was sometimes called. Colonel Daniel Frost's brigade, including the 54th Pennsylvania, crossed the ford following Colonel Wells's brigade. Private Joseph Gerbron later wrote, "I got in a feed trough back of a wagon so I did not get wet." Once across, Colonel Frost's brigade formed their battle line. We're going to go downstream a little bit more to where they would have formed that line. So we're further downstream now, opposite of where the 54th Pennsylvania formed in the fields. That's a island in the middle of the Shenandoah directly in front of us. But you can see in the clearing over there is some fields. That's where the battle is going to take place. So directly opposite of this island, the 54th Pennsylvania forms with the 11th West Virginia on their left and the 15th West Virginia to their right. Colonel Frost ordered his skirmishers out in front of his main line, and they immediately commenced skirmish with the Rebs in a hurried clash. Their fire drove the enemy pickets away from the edge of the river. Colonel Toburn's old brigade, under the command of Colonel William Elley, formed to the right of Colonel Frost's small brigade and extended the Union line further north, heading downstream into those open fields that you can see across the river here. Some dismounted cavalry anchored the right flank. General Early ordered 2 entire divisions into the fight. They quickly drove the Federal skirmishers back off of the hilltop, that tree line that you can see across the river there, top of those fields, and they threatened to overlap the right flank of General Crook's line. Colonel Toburn looked for a way to save his crumbling line. He ordered Colonel Frost to march his brigade at the right oblique, then wheel it to the right and take up a position along a second low stone wall that would be almost directly in front of us now. We can't see it through all of the trees and the brush, but it would have run perpendicular to the Shenandoah River. Lieutenant Colonel Linton remembered a change of front of the left of our line was ordered, which was gallantly executed under fire. The men marched across the field exposed to a heavy fire from the advancing Confederates, who also wanted possession of the stone wall. Sergeant Marshall Van Scoten saw the Confederate advancing across the open field, and then there ensued the most rapid military movements ever witnessed between the infantry of the Union forces and the infantry of the Confederates to gain possession of the Stone Row, it being regarded as the key to this position. However, our forces gained their point a few moments ahead of the rebels. At the wall, the 54th Pennsylvania opened fire, and for a time appeared to check the Confederates. Soon the ball was opened, wrote Private Wright. The 54th Pennsylvania remained heavily engaged, but were greatly outnumbered, wrote Corporal Kaufman. Despite the odds, the men in the 54th Pennsylvania stood their ground, loading and firing as fast as they could. Lieutenant Colonel Linton added, the enemy for a time was repulsed. Colonel Frost's men held a very precarious position. After reaching the stone wall, Lieutenant Colonel Linton noted this change of front caused our left to be formed at right angles with the river, threw forward our left flank, unguarded, and flying in the air. Upon this flying flank, the enemy soon made an attack. Confederate fire took a toll on the brigade, including Colonel Frost, who received a mortal wound when a bullet pierced his bowels. Almost immediately, of the 6 field officers present with the brigade, 1 was killed, 1 mortally, and 1 severely wounded, 2 slightly wounded. Lieutenant Colonel Linton assumed command of the brigade when Colonel Frost fell, but he too received a slight wound from a bullet to his shoulder. The 54th Pennsylvania continued to take casualties as they clung to their position and desperately tried to slow the Confederate attack. Leaderless and attacked on 3 sides, Colonel Frost's brigade ran for the stone wall along the towpath by the river. They managed to reach the wall, but paid dearly, suffering over 40% of the Federal casualties in the battle. Lieutenant Colonel Linton later wrote the 54th Pennsylvania was one of the last regiments to give way. Many did not stop at the wall, but instead plunged into the river in a frantic attempt to escape the powerful Confederate attack. Private Wright wrote, "They was too much for us. We had to cross the river again. The Confederates continued to fire on the men splashing across the river. A bullet struck Private Hiram Sanner in the back of the knee. Unable to walk, he immediately fell into the water. Lieutenant William Sanner pulled him up and helped him across. Once across, the 54th Pennsylvania formed on the eastern bank and prepared to resist any advance of the rebels. 2 days later, 54th Pennsylvania received orders to cross the river again and continue the pursuit of the Confederates. A sudden thunderstorm slowed the crossing, but the 54th Pennsylvania went up beyond the battlefield and camped. A few took the opportunity to revisit the battlefield here and search for any wounded comrades the Confederates might have left behind, as well as to bury their dead. The heavy rainstorm washed much of the dirt off the shallow graves. Many of the Federals looked on with revulsion as their dead comrades' arms, legs, and heads sticking out of the ground. The 54th Pennsylvania also found many of their wounded comrades left behind. After reburying the dead and treating their wounded, the regiment marched with the rest of the army after the retreating Confederates. Thank you for watching this episode of In the Footsteps of the 54th.